So I've already made a video explaining my thought process behind marking up support and resistance onto a chart. But in that video, I spent a lot of time explaining where I draw the lines once I've already figured out where the zone is. But I didn't really go into too much detail about how to actually pinpoint the zones themselves. I'm going to make another small series of videos where I mark up some blank charts and I'll talk through how I decide where the zones are and then where exactly I put the lines, just to give you a bit more experience and practice seeing where these lines get drawn on. Because honestly, I think understanding how to draw support and resistance is the single biggest skill that will improve you as a trader. It's so often overlooked and most people think it's so easy because it's just drawing a horizontal line on a chart. But honestly, if you can really pinpoint these lines, you don't need anything else to trade well. Everything else is just a bonus. Support and resistance is your foundation, it's your bread and butter. So it will really benefit you if you spend the time to really get good at this stuff. So now onto the chart, we've got Litecoin versus Bitcoin in front of you here, just on the daily chart, and we're going to mark it up now. So when I first open up a chart that I've never seen before and it's totally blank and I want to start marking out support and resistance, the first thing I'll do is just throw on a horizontal line anywhere on the chart, and then I'll start dragging it around to find areas where there's a cluster of highs or a cluster of lows that I can visually see around the line. I'll try and focus my attention to areas around the current market price for now. There's just no point moving the line too far away because the market's unlikely to get into those areas anytime soon. So starting on this Litecoin chart, we're at the current market price and I'll just drag it up and down and just visually take a look at where I can see clusters of highs and clusters of lows. So the big one that pops out to me right now is this area here where we've got this clustering of highs and we've got some touches over here, some touches over here, some touches here. And then when we burst through, we came down and touched this area as support as well. So I think that's a great line to put on there. So then I'll just drag out another line and we'll just go through the process again of just dragging a line out and finding clusterings of highs and clusters of lows. So we can see here, we've got one here where we've got some highs here, we've got some congestion here. Market's actually moving into this area right now. We have some highs back here. We have a clustering of lows over here. So that's another good area where I'll just put a line on. And I'll just continue this process until I have a few lines above market price and a few lines below. But I don't want to get too bogged down in catching every little high and every little low. I just want the major points on the chart. So I could drag down a line here, for example, and put it into this area where there's a little group of highs in here and some lows there. But honestly, that visually doesn't look like a huge level to me. So I'll tend to avoid putting those kinds of lines on there. And I think when you're very first getting started, that's the really hard part. You're honing this new skill and you kind of just want to throw lines on everywhere. And initially, that's what you'll do because you won't know any better. But as you start to get better at this, you'll have to learn that you only want to pick out the best levels. So you don't want to have 100 lines on your chart at any given time. You only want to pick out the best possible levels. So in this case, this line here, I wouldn't want on the chart. So I'll just keep dragging it down until I find a better area to put it in, which is somewhere around here. So these are some pretty major lows, but the zone in this area is quite big. I mean, it goes from here all the way down to here. So we could do what I said earlier and put a line at the very bottom of the range and a line at the very top of the range. And I would be happy with that because we do have some lows in here. We've picking out some highs in here, some lows here. I mean, that's pretty good as far as I'm concerned. And we'll just drag out another line up into this area where we've got a clustering of highs. Here we have the same issue with as we had down here. But if I just zoom in, it's a good illustration here that we have a high all the way up here, but most of the highs are in this area focused in around here. So when I find an area like that, instead of doing a line at the bottom of the range and a line at the top, I'll just draw one line and I'll try to get as many touches of wicks onto that line as I can. So where it is right now, every one of these candle wicks touches the line. And it's also somewhere in the middle of the range. I mean, if you considered this high as part of the range, it's almost perfectly in the middle. And we catch as many highs as we can that are actually touching the line. So that's what I would do in that instance. At this point, I'm happy with how the daily is marked out. So as always, we'll just drop down onto the hourly chart, and I will drag out this line, and we'll just change the template to the hourly template. And then I'll just continue the process. I'll just start dragging the line up and down close to market price until I find clusterings of highs and clusterings of lows. So here we've got a clustering of lows. I'll put a line there and I'll just zoom out to see if we catch anything more. And as you can see, we do catch some lows here and here, so that's a good line. I'm happy with that. Then I'll see if there's anything below market price that we can drag out. Really, there isn't too much here. I will just scroll it back a little. We'll zoom in. There's some highs here, but we're pretty close to this daily line. So I would actually be inclined to not keep this hourly on there, because if the market comes down into this area, we're in the zone of that daily line anyway. So I wouldn't bother. Not to mention that this isn't really a strong level anyway. There's not that many highs here, and we do chop through it quite a lot. So I'll just drag that down and just put it under here, just so that I'm aware that there was a clustering of lows over there. And we do have a little bit here. We could drag another one down here, but again, I'm not going to bother for now because I don't think the market's going to come down here anytime soon. And we can just drag out one final line into this area here where we have this series of lows. We've got this low here, and then just put it back on auto and move back to the current time. So now I'll just add in a few more lines above market. So I'll just drag it out, and there's a level here. We've got a clustering of highs. But if the market does come into that area, it's not a tradable area for me unless we break through and retest it. But I do want to mark it on the chart just so that I'm aware it's there. But if we do come up into that area, it was previous resistance and it will be new resistance now. So I'm not going to take an immediate trade there, but I do want to be aware of that zone. And some of you may look at this chart and think that there's a zone in here somewhere because we have some lows here and some lows here, some highs here. And you certainly wouldn't be wrong to think that. But personally, I wouldn't put that on there because it's not one of the bigger levels, I don't think. So I would avoid putting that on there. But if you want to, that's more than okay. You can definitely do that. And then I think at this point, we've got quite a few lines above and below market. So I'm happy with how that is. So I would call this done. I would say this chart is well marked out. And now we can just start to be vigilant and see what the market's going to do, how it's going to react to these zones. And then we're going to have to update where those lines are. Sometimes the line will move slightly. Sometimes we'll have to remove it altogether. But it's just a very fluid thing, and you have to keep that in mind. So I think that's enough for this video. In the next video, we'll go through this whole process again on a brand new chart. Don't know what coin it's going to be, but you'll have to wait and see. But until then, I'll see you later.